I want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for your participation. Whether you're an artist in Imprint or just an MFA member, we appreciate everything that you all do in terms of keeping us ticking and keeping the exhibitions flowing. So, we are all here today for the Imprint 2024 Virtual Awards Ceremony. I'm joined with Juliana Oakes. She is our gallery assistant. She'll be running point from the Circle Gallery. I myself am Amani Freeman. I'm the exhibitions manager for the MFA. If I've met you before, it's nice to see you again. If this is the first time, it's a pleasure to meet you. And we're also joined today by our curator, Miss Elizabeth Rudy. She is the Carl A. Weyerhaeuser Associate Curator of Prints at the Harvard Art Museums, where she stewards their collection of roughly 60,000 prints made in Europe and the Americas, from the 15th century to the contemporary era. Ms. Rudy holds a PhD from Harvard University, and her scholarly research focuses on prints of the 18th and 19th centuries. She's published widely on prints, and some of her recent exhibitions at Harvard include Prints from the Brandywine Workshop and Archives, March 4th to July 31st, 2022, Dare to Know, Print and Drawings in the Age of the Enlightenment, September 16th, 2022 to January 15th, 2023, and Latoya M. Hobbs, It's Time, March 1st to July 21st, 2024. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Miss Rudy, and she'll open us up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for the deep honor of being the juror for your fall show. Thank you, Amani, for guiding me through this process with such inordinate care and patience. It was really wonderful to work with you, and I hope the opportunity to do so again presents itself in the future. Thank you also, Juliana, for helping to facilitate today. And thank you all who submitted prints to this competition. I was so impressed with the range of techniques and subject matter. Even more than that, I was encouraged and excited by the way you artists are pushing the possibilities of the medium to say something important and to do something different than what has come before. I went through several rounds in my selection for the exhibition, and I always came back with renewed gratitude for being entrusted with the role of juror and for the ability to have a front row seat to the thriving graphic arts in the contemporary field today. Being a juror is necessarily subjective, and I have my own biases, blind spots, and preferences. But I was guided and inspired by the overarching themes for the exhibition: communal meaning, openness, and stickiness. That last one I found to be so clever. I interpreted the concept of communal meaning as shared experience, not identical experience, but events or ideas that unite a collective or group. I took openness in a literal technical sense, but also in a sense of risk-taking. And I embraced the notion of stickiness as something that is truly memorable. As I studied the submissions over time, I made sure to select the prints that I kept seeing in my memory after I turned away from the laptop, and the ones I was eager to see again when I logged back into the system. Like all art forms, but perhaps more than all others, because of its inherently collaborative aspects and the communication between the artist and the press, prints have the capacity to bring people together, to exchange viewpoints and ideas, and to propose different realities. Thank you for bringing me into this robust and beautiful array of visual expression, and for advocating through your work for the powerful roles fine art prints can play in our society. With that, I'll say a few brief words about the prints that I selected for awards. I was immediately struck by this print, and specifically by its combination of presence and absence. I loved how ephemeral performance, that is the gestures and the dancers and the music, were there juxtaposed with solid, immovable stone architecture. I was also drawn to the incessant play of light and shadow throughout the composition. It's as if there's something haunting here, but it coexists with joy to my eye. I found the commingling of opposites to be evocative and thought-provoking. I have a real soft spot for etching. That is one of my preferences. And like the previous print, I saw here a perfect marriage of technique and subject. The moody, suggestive, and luminous potential of the play of ink on the copper surface, meeting the emotive and amorphous evocation of sugar lift. There is, as a result of all these aspects, a confusion between the sky and the water here. The viewer can get lost in the move between representation and abstraction, and also just savor the simple burr of dry point. I was excited by the deconstruction of this composition, where a cityscape is turned into another composition altogether, with the wonderful suggestion of a figure at the right and the unsettling irresolution of scale. There is an inscrutability throughout this work, despite the legibility of the individual parts. Collage, which is a technique employed in this print, fundamentally invites these questions of form and meaning, and I found it to be especially well deployed here to provoke the large, messy question about an individual's place in the world. In a similar way, but all in the same picture plane, this work seized my imagination for its play with despair and hope, destruction and repair. Its fluctuation between transparency and substance, containment and overflow is very thought-provoking and evocative to my eye. And I found that all of that was exaggerated and emphasized through the really elegant deployment of color. I confess that I didn't recognize the central feature of this print at first, which is a silhouette of the now iconic photograph of Irina Kaliliana being rescued by her Ukrainian compatriots from the rubble of a Russian bomb. Nevertheless, this composition seized my attention immediately because of its frank and urgent appeal. The reference is from early in the Ukrainian-Russian war, and neither Irina nor her unborn baby survived the attack on their home. The use of language here emblazoned across or emanating from the bodies of the figures is poignant. To my eye, this print is political and social critique in an effective and compelling register. This print appealed to me right away as well for the art historical references that it brought to my mind. The depiction of speed through the deconstruction of the composition recalled for me the Italian futurists of the early 20th century or the Grosvenor School of printmakers in early 20th century England. I found it to be both playful and compelling, but also just really fun to look at. This was the print that gripped me and that I kept coming back to as I studied the submissions. It brings us in as much as it pushes us out of the picture plane and into these figures' space and lives. The oblique photographic angle on the figures, which only gives us a partial view of these three individuals, and their juxtaposition but opaque connection to each other is compelling. In a similar fashion, the economy of the line in this woodcut invites us in and then leaves us out again. The short parallel lines to define one figure's knees, for example, but no contour for their legs. The hatching throughout the face of the figure closest to us, except for the burst of light on their cheek, and much more. And then there's the provocative title, which throws all of this into greater conceptual relief, augmenting whatever tenuousness or conditional tense we might have felt or perceived in the composition itself. Who is Nana? What was their trauma? At least that is that which is suggested by the concept of survival. Where are these three people in time and place? This print invites sustained and repeated looking, to wonder about and through the composition, as much as to delight in the skill and elegance of each carved line. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Rudy, for your remarks and your insight. It's clear that you know your stuff. Just the way that you speak of the work and through your experience and background, it's really clear that you were very thoughtful in the process, and we really do appreciate you for that. At this time, if any of the artists or even if Miss Rudy would like to pose a question, I know that some of the award winners are here. If you'd like to pose a question to Miss Rudy, or like I said, if Miss Rudy would like to pose a question to you all, now is the time.
Well, one thing I'll ask of the artists who are here. I suppose one of my first questions is the work that you submitted to this exhibition or this competition. So what were the driving factors for those particular prints? Were you looking at the themes of the exhibition? Were you thinking about that in any way vis-a-vis your work? Or was this just work that you just found to be especially apropos for this moment? Or what were some of the motivations for these selections on your behalf?
This is Nancy Fishel, and thank you so much for recognizing my work. And I love that you mentioned the historical aspects because I love studying art history and looking for precedents for my work. The pieces that I entered were ones that were indicative of series that I have been working on and my personal vision. And fortunately, Maryland Federation of Art has been very supportive of my prints. And so I wanted to be able to show something that represented my personal voice.
I guess I have a question for you, Amani, which is, what's the sort of geographic distribution or representation in the exhibition?
It spans. I find that shows, because we have international membership.
Mhm.
Um, Shows that are online, I would say, or I think it's pretty even. We've exhibited as far as Ghana, West Africa, all artists from Ghana, West Africa. We have a lot of local people in Anne Arundel County and Prince George's County, DC, Northern Virginia. For this show in particular, I know that we had a good assortment of states. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Miss Kathleen Wynn is not in state. She shipped her work. Miss Fishel and Miss Laviana, they're both local. I think Miss Erin Hall, who just joined, she was Irina Kaliliana. She, I believe, is out of state as well. So we reach pretty far in terms of U.S. and international. It just depends on the exhibition.
And how long is the show up for?
It's up until the third week of September, so it spanned 33 days, so yeah, a month and 3 days. We had the opening reception, which was well attended. And yeah, I think also, even though there's no representatives from Maryland Hall, which is the space that we exhibited the work in, which we don't normally do because we have the Circle Gallery. I do want to thank them for allowing us into their space. And something that is pretty interesting is the owner, well, the donor of that gallery, Mr. Jim Earl, he was a printmaker himself. So we found it fitting that we put the printmaking show in that gallery, and he actually got to see the show beforehand,
Oh,
and
that's
he
great.
really enjoyed it. So it was a nice full circle moment. Well, on behalf of the Maryland Federation of Art, Ms. Rudy, I'd like to thank you so much for your input, all the work that you put into making this exhibition happen, um, your insight. You can really tell that you were very thoughtful in the assessment of the show as a whole and of the award winners, and for that, we're very grateful. And yeah, like you're very easy to work with, so that's always very nice. Hopefully, in the future, we can work together again through the Federation. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. And if you have any remarks, please feel free.
Thank you so much, Amani. I just noticed the comment that Kathleen Wynn had just entered that the title was incorrect. I didn't know that. I didn't put together the PowerPoint, so my remarks on the title that were misplaced, inaccurate. But what is the title of your work, Kathleen?
Title is Shopping Trip. And
Totally different conceptual tenor than from survival.
is.
But that's
I
really
mean,
interesting too.
I agree that the title, they're formal and there are artistic differences. My aim really is to capture people's lives as they exist in the few minutes that you see them in the subway, and parts of their lives that they don't know that anybody is privy to, but you look at people and you kind of think about their families, where they're going to, where they live, what they do during the day. And that's what I like to capture. It was just a shopping trip.
That's
Well, thank you, Ms.
interesting.
Wynn, for pointing that out. I do apologize for the discrepancy in the title, but as we send you your check, I've already made a note. We'll be sure to have the right title on there. So
But
thank
it's
you.
interesting because it's a title is very significant because for the reader viewer, it really can it can shift the lens completely, right? Of where the imagination would go. Now that I see it through the lens of shopping trip, I have many more questions about the relationships between the figures than I
Mhm.
did perhaps with the incorrect title, which pushed me more toward well, as you know, in a different direction. But I have to say, I mean, one thing about your print that really grabbed me and that I wanted to make it give it the first prize, so to speak, as well, was that it did what so many of the submissions did, which was it brought the viewer in, there was a suggestion um, of despair or hints of despair or longing or sadness, but overall the way that the humanity was represented. And I just saw that throughout the submissions, that even with works that were grappling with trauma, with war, with depths of sadness, there was still an attempt to show shared humanity and to express hope or joy of some kind.
That is all in terms of remarks. And like I said, thank you again, Miss Wynn, for correcting us. We've gone ahead and made that change. I do apologize for that being a mistake in the first place. But thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. We will be uploading this to YouTube. So if you want to look over again, if you want to make any notes or just anything of that nature, we will have that available to you. And like I said, thank you so much, Miss Rudy, for taking time out of your day, and not just today, but just in general, and working with us. And I hope that you all have a great rest of your Sunday. I'm not sure where you are, but the weather is very lovely outside. So if you want to catch some fresh air, today is a good day to do so. So yeah, thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your day.